Hey, hello everyone. How are you? I hope everything is well on your side. Welcome to our 16 October LVC SEAf webinar um, on food sovereignty and the struggle to stop no, transnational corporations violations to human rights and their power. Thank you everyone for being here. My name is Mateus Costa Santos. Just a quick couple of notifications for you. This meeting is being recorded and we are transmitting live on YouTube. So we hope actually, or we are asking you, counting on you to broadcast this to your friends, to your communities, to your WhatsApp groups and everywhere else you may see fit. I'm putting already the link in our chat for you to broadcast this. And in the meantime, take some time to introduce yourselves in the chat. Please indicate to us your language, please. We have difficulty in the interpretation set up for us today, unfortunately. So we are saving our French interpretation to when we actually will need it. So if you are a French speaker, please indicate in the chat and we will make sure the interpretation starts when you are there. Let me hand over now to our moderator facilitator for the day, who is Sidi Otieno from Kenyan Peasant League. Sidi, over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Comrade Matthews. And also, thank you so much to all of us who have got time to attend this important meeting. Actually, this meeting is supposed to mark the, the the People's Food Sovereignty Day that is marked annually on 16th of October. So this meeting is coming at a time when we are seeing a lot of onslaught on the food system, on the food sovereignty, and we are seeing a lot of transnational corporations actually making moves that are targeted at dismantling or capturing our local food systems. And if you look at the ongoing global crisis in terms of war, land grabs, etc., then it actually underscores the importance of this meeting. So the theme of the meeting of today is the people's food sovereignty versus transnational corporations, with a focus on defending seeds and markets and healthy ecosystems. This meeting will have three main objectives, and one of the objectives will be to raise awareness about the dangers of corporate capture of food systems within the continent, Africa, or even globally, and its impacts on the peasants or the life of the peasants where we work. So, what is the impact of such corporate capture on food sovereignty, on the environment, specifically in the southern and eastern Africa, and of course, even continentally and even globally? Of course, the second objective of this will be now how are we able to amplify the voices of the struggle, the peasant voices of the struggle from the region, because sometimes you find that the voices of the peasants are always marginalized in the community. How are they be able to amplify that, showcasing the lived reality of small scale food producers, women, and youth? And of course, also to be able to share frontline experiences, how the communities are responding with agroecology, seed saving. We have issues of local markets and resistance. This meeting, we are also going to. So, in terms of the program of the meeting, we have speakers who I'm going to introduce in a while, and the speakers are going to speak to us on various topics. So after that, we are going to have the context, which will be done by Comrade Matthews, and then we'll dive straight to the presentations, which will focus on corporate capture or corporate concentration in the food systems, looking at the global and African perspectives. We're going to look at seed from the seed perspectives. We have got laws or instruments like UPOV, plant variety protection and treaties, and this will focus on specific case studies, maybe of what's happening in countries like Zambia and other countries. And of course, we're also going to focus on the perspectives from the ground. And of course, we have got several members of La Via Campesina in the region, like, let me say, Biwata, ISAF, Kenya Peasant League, and others who are also going to be talking to us briefly on how they are the alternatives, how are they organizing, and how such alternatives can be able to be amplified. And of course, we're also going to have an open discussion or an open conversations where the participants are able to engage with the panelists. So we also ask that you might be able to noting down any emerging issues. Either you can post them on the chat or mark them to be raised on them. Then, of course, we'll also have a session on the message of peace and solidarity. You know, right now we are facing a lot of a global war crisis. The changing geopolitical environment. All of us, I think, Ravia Campesina, actively engaged in the issue of Gaza, including in the flotilla. And of course, message of peace and solidarity with all the corners. In Africa, we are seeing wars in Europe now. In South America, the conflicts between the US, right? We are seeing Venezuela, we are seeing the Middle East, Africa, closer home, Sudan, South Sudan, and many other countries. So, what message are we able to give during this time? So, without wasting time, I would want to perhaps give a brief introduction to our speakers of today, and I would start by just a minute. Yeah, we have speakers for today who include one. We have Mariam Mayet. Mariam Mayet is the founder and director of the Africa Center for Biodiversity, which is a non-profit organization based in Joburg, South Africa. And of course, ACB has carried a lot of research, analysis, advocacy on different topics, and of course, has been engaged in building capacity and catalyzing action, especially among the organization on issues to do with let me say, policies around decision making that control production, distribution, and access to food and natural resources. So, Mariam Mayet has earned a respected record of evidence-based work and plays a vital role in food sovereignty struggles in the African continent, and of course has been engaged extensively at various levels on matters to do with the seed or plant treaty at Rome, and has been very much instrumental in unpacking some of this issue. So then, of course, our second speaker is Barbara, who is a lawyer, an academic, and an activist specializing in law, technology justice, and food systems governance in Africa. And of course, Barbara has got over 15 years of experience in conducting extensive research, policy analysis around food systems, governance issues, on emerging technologies, synthetic biology, and of course, a very hot topic of digitalization of food and agriculture, especially in Africa. And of course, that topic of digitalization is very instrumental. Just recently in Nairobi, Kenya, we had a COMESA assembly meeting that was focusing on digitalizing of trade, agriculture, and many other issues, actually being fronted as one of the panacea. Of course, Barbara currently works with the ETC, and of course, coordinating the African Working Group on Digitalization of Food and Agriculture, and advocating for collective voices of civil society to influence governance on digital technologies in Africa, issues of data security, data sovereignty. And of course, he's passionate about technology and serves the needs of smallholder farmers And of course, we also have Comrade Susan Kashwa from Grain, of course, Grain is Susan and Grain have been very much instrumental, and Grain has also taken part in developing a lot of policy briefs and papers on various topics that are instrumental, including on building capacity of organizations around topical issues on seeds, trade, and matters that are going to be very much instrumental to our discussion today. So, as you see, we are having a rich combination of speakers in our today's meeting. And as they speak, perhaps we will again remind us that if we have any observations or any questions that we might want to bring on board, feel free to post them on the chat or note them down, and they can be responded to. And of course, as I said, later on, we shall also be joined by representatives of the member organizations that I've mentioned, who are also engaged in various ways in promoting food sovereignty. So at this point in time, I would maybe pass the program or the mic to Comrade Matthews to give us a context of where we are now, why is this meeting critical today, and what is expected of us maybe after this meeting. So welcome, Comrade Matthews.
Thank you very much, Sidi, and thank you everyone for being here. To our panelists, to our members who are here and going to present their experiences, and to all of those of you who have joined the discussion. I am Mateus Costa Santos, part of the Southern and Eastern Africa Regional Secretariat, and today my task now in this moment with you is to give a little bit of a background for this discussion, because our intention here is to make real meaning out of the context that we are living in, and how is everything that is happening in the world, in our region, in our countries, how is it affecting us now, and how does it look like for the near future. Okay, so I have prepared a presentation for you today. I am not going to go through all of it in detail at this moment, just in the interest of time. But I actually prepared a very nice document to share with you all, which will naturally be shared after the session. I hope that you can see my screen.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. So, comrades, I wanted to just give us a grounding of the global architecture of power and control. So, the game of global power has been played by humans for a very long time, and the rules of this game have not changed over time. Over centuries, the ruling elites have exercised their power over the people by manipulating pillars of power. So in this sense, power is a tool of control. Okay? These pillars of power are, of course, here conceptualized into 6 main pillars, and they are naturally interdependent between them. So we have debt, which converts livelihood assets into collateral; scarcity, which legitimizes enclosure, turning shared resources into controlled commodities; legalized exclusion through the schemes and the frameworks of ownership laws; market dependency, which ensures extraction; ideological control, which builds consent and normalization; and the surveillance and data control, which monitors and predicts behavior to reinforce obedience and dependency. Comrades, the intention here is just to set a conceptual grounding for our discussion, so bear with us on this. These pillars, of course, interact with each other in the following ways. They Debt relies on ideology, which means debt relies on people's morality to repay their own debts. This is something of our own values culturally, right? And our morals as a society. Scarcity justifies market dependency, all right? So what does this mean? Scarcity justifies the scarcity narratives justify privatization and ownership laws reproduce scarcity. Okay, so surveillance strengthens ideological control through data-driven influence. Okay, that means that through data, the systems can observe how people think. Okay, and through that data direct how people think through their marketing. Okay, uh, creating market dependence, and so the cycle continues. So together they form a closed circuit of extraction and domination, which is a system that has shaped all economies, but also the very conditions of life, belief, and access to food in our modern society. Okay. They, in specific to the food system, interact in very meaningful ways as well. So the scarcity narratives justify privatization, as I said before. Ownership laws reproduce this scarcity. Okay, this means what? That we have very little air to breathe. Okay, so what we need to do, and we have such little land still preserved. Africa has so much of this land. We need to privatize that land to protect the resource. Okay, and then people don't have access to land anymore because that land which was public now is private. So an example that drives market dependency, and dependency deepens debt. I think everyone can understand that one. Ideology sustains the market by shaping the desires and consumption habits. This means the idea, for example, that agroecology and our traditional ways of doing farming are seen as backwards. So what we need is modernity. What is modernity? Marketing will tell you what that is. Okay. Surveillance also reinforces this ideology through targeted influence, as I just explained. Okay, comrades, we're looking at some mechanisms of how the system controls society. Okay, so this interdependence forms the invisible architecture of economic domination, where control is exerted in various different ways. Okay, so weaponizing of hunger. Hunger largely is caused by human action today. Famine is increasingly being used as a weapon of domination, targeting civilians and destroying resilience of populations. In 2024, 638 million people, that is more than 8% of the global population, faced hunger. And conflict that caused acute food insecurity reached the numbers of 140 million people in 20 countries. This means maybe 15, 20% of everyone that is hungry is because they're in a war context. So these are significant numbers, and particularly for Africa, where we have so many active conflicts taking place in our countries, which we will cover as well a little bit. I have only 2 more slides to go. So Africa's food systems have historically been under attack from colonial and then from post-colonial corporate elites aiming to gain control of our food and trade, which have progressively eroded the rights of food producers and consumers, all in the name of profit and control. Now, let's place us, comrades, and I'm sorry if I'm going too fast, but I'm trying to save our time here for our brilliant speakers today. I would like now to bring all of this into the real context of where we are, our lives, which is the objective of this session. Understand how does this, all of this play out in our daily lives? How does it affect us personally, in our countries, in our communities, families, and so on. So, there has been a trend of developing a ruling world order that drove our systems, our food system in a specific direction for a long time. Recently, over the last 5 years, 5 to 10 years, some major shocks and events have taken place globally, and they have majorly shaped and shaken the foundations of the system that has been there until now. Okay, so the first of them is the COVID crisis. We saw how this crisis impacted the food, the distribution chains around the world, and the impact that it had on food systems globally, in the developed world, in the so-called underdeveloped world, let's say the global north and the global south, how differentiated these impacts were in relation to food, in relation to medicine, so the system and the fractures of the system were exposed in a very big way in this first moment in 2020. 2 years later, the Ukraine-Russia war starts, and that has major impacts on the food sector, because Ukraine and Russia are major grain producers. Russia is a main fertilizer producer, a synthetic fertilizer producer, and from one moment to the other, all of this supply was no longer in the market, and that had great repercussions. I'm sure many of you remember all the analysis that came of which African countries depend on the wheat from Ukraine, and all of this. So we are seeing these global power struggles affecting our lives in the price of the food that we buy in the supermarket. Of course, underlying to all of this, fuel prices goes up, everything goes up. We remember that. Okay. 2023, we saw the beginning of the escalation of the Palestine war, let's say. Since then, 2023, it's almost been 2 years already. It's been 2 years this month. 67,000 Palestinians, including 20,000 children, have been killed, and another 169,000 have been injured. Brothers and sisters, this is graphic, and this is war that is happening today. Okay? Sometimes because we are far in Africa, we feel that things are not so real, but thousands and thousands of children have lost one or more limbs in this war. And Gaza epitomizes how food and hunger are being weaponized to subdue entire populations, with the whole world watching. Finally, 2025, we see a number of armed conflicts expanding in our continent. And this is an extensive list here for you. We have Sudan, DRC, Central African Republic, Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, Mozambique, South Sudan, Cameroon, Ethiopia, Nigeria, Senegal. That's 12 major armed conflicts taking place as we are meeting here today. Africa remains a target for competing global powers, Western, Chinese, Russian, and from the Gulf, that is UAE, Saudi Arabia, and others, Qatar, which are all seeking to control land, energy, and natural resources, even as the foundation of global power is being restructured, and perhaps actually because of that, or for that purpose. But it's not all bad news. African nourishment is still provided largely through small-scale food production. African crops livestock, and fisheries still account for around 70% of food supply in Africa. This is also a moment of opportunity where African states and people can, if they are wise enough, reclaim control over their territories and redirect development in ways that benefits Africans, build peace, and restore nature as a common heritage of the people. And this is my last slide. I'm not sure, Sidi, how long I took, but I hope this was useful, and I'm hoping that that also the other presenters are going to really build on this and bring the life to the discussion. Thank you, Sidi. Over to you.
Sorry, I was speaking to myself. Thank you so much, Comrade Matheus, for that actually elaborate introduction. And I think you have given us a very good context of the whole situation, touching on the issues of wars, weaponization of hunger, issues of corporate capture, and many other issues that you have, even the statistics about the deaths of children. And of course, there could be others that are not reported, very many of them. And of course, without wasting much time, we would go straight just to be able to build on what Comrade Matheus, the context that has been created by Comrade Matheus. I would want to invite the next session. We'll be talking about the corporate concentration in the food systems, looking at the global and of course African perspectives. And the focus here will be perhaps to be able to dive into maybe informing us who are these main corporations, what are their targets, do we know them, do we know the people behind them? And we believe that this information is going to be very critical in perhaps informing our next steps regarding either advocacy or fight back against such corporate concentration. So at this juncture and point in time, I will maybe welcome Comrade Susan Kashwa from Grain to dive straight, and then maybe she will be followed by Comrade Barbara, who will also be, expanding on that and also speaking more about the digitalization in Africa. So welcome, Comrade Susan.
Thank you so much, Sidi, and thank you,
Susan,
Matheus,
is it possible for you to open your camera? Sorry, just so we can see each other, if possible.
Okay, no problem.
Just quickly, if even.
There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Matheus, for putting things into perspective. I think it also helps to shave off a bit of time in the presentation that I was going to make. I've been requested to share about a report that, a joint report between ETC and Grain on the top 10 agribusiness giants. And the reason that this report is important is because corporate concentration, like Matheus has said, is really concerning, especially for our food systems on the African continent. I've shared the link to the report if you would like to also follow along, and also take another moment to read it when you have some time. But just to say that Matheus will also will help and project my presentation. But would also request that you read it alongside another report that ETC Group released in 2022, which was called The Food Barons, which exposed corporate concentration in 10 sectors across the industrial food system. And this particular report, the top 10 agribusiness giants, is again a joint publication between the two organizations, ETC Group and Grain, and it updates on particularly 6 sectors in the agricultural sector. And these are commercial seeds, pesticides, synthetic fertilizers, farm machinery, animal pharmaceuticals, and livestock genetics. And please note that the statistics that will appear in this report are all within the 2023 time frame. So it is important for us to note, it is important for us to note as we go along in this discussion what Mateus said about corporate concentration and what corporate concentration really looks for. So in the next slide, you see that corporate concentration is basically corporations gaining more power to dictate prices, to lobby policymakers, and this power is also used to disrupt research so that they can drive their own research agenda. They block regulations that protect our health and the environment, and undermine demarcation participation in the shaping of our food system. So basically, farmers are taken out of the decision-making process, and even yourselves as consumers, and even Africans in general, are taken out of the seed system, seed and food system discussions. And also this increases their ability to expand into an industrial food system. So the industrial food system generally accounts for about 0.5% of the global greenhouse gas emissions. There's a struggle for soil, there's a struggle for water, there's an increase in pollution, biodiversity, and loss. And our food systems are basically broken and they are being displaced. Farmers are being displaced as well. Indigenous knowledge, indigenous peoples, exploitation of people. This is basically what Mateus has been talking about, and this is what we see as well. So it is important for us to have discussions around corporate concentration, basically because everything that is ours becomes somebody else's, and then it becomes problematic for us to even make decisions on our food and seed systems and even agricultural processes and even regulate around them. So this report is unique in a way that it picks up 10 giants in different sectors and puts them across so that we can have a broader discussion around them. And I'll just run through them. So the first, when you see in the next slide, the first oligopolies that we look at are the top commercial seed sector. And in the commercial seed sector, we are talking about people who own the seed systems, people who sell seeds. So commercial seeds, not our seeds in Africa, not the informal seed sector. That's not what we're talking about. But that area, my colleague Mariam will talk about it in detail with regards to the seeds. But what I wanted to pull out in this area is also the discussion around what it means to, what this means in Africa and which examples we have. So with Bayer, you will see the examples of who they deal with in the next slide and the areas which they're dealing with. So that's in Africa Agribusiness Partnership Forum, and that's within the Agro-Dealer Network, Boothleigh Farmers Academy in South Africa, training smallholder farmers in modernization skills, the IITA, and that's farm equipment and breeding. When you go to Cortiva, it's research, it's laboratory services, it's breeding and seed treatment. And all of these imply that there is seed marketing, treatment and improvement. There is agribusiness model that is being pushed and the modernization of farming. And I will run straight to the next slide, which is on, again, the machinery sector and also the animal farmer sector. And if you see within the report, they report Deere as the biggest, John Deere as the biggest corporation farm sector. But again, when you look at that, you ask yourself, how does Africa come into this? John Deere is in partnership with Equity Bank and Stanbic Bank to finance farming and construction equipment. What does that mean? It means that farmers are getting into loans and debts to be able to finance these equipments through the banking sector. So the banking sector is in coalition of destroying our food systems, but also in coalition of keeping our farmers in perpetual debt as they try to get this equipment to be able to modernize, quote unquote, their agricultural systems. And Zotis, they are in the livestock sector, and that is in veterinary infrastructure mainly. What are we looking at here? We are looking at a push for antibiotics into the farming sector. We all know antibiotic resistance, what it would mean, but if animals are consuming antibiotics at high rates, what does that mean? So the conversation around loan schemes driving farmers into debt, data harvesting, which my colleague Barbara will expound on, and livestock feed and big pharma coming into the livestock sector, which should be an area of concern for all of us. And the other aspect of the report is around nitrogen fertilizers. And we have had the conversation around NPK. So nitrogen fertilizers, phosphate-based fertilizers, and potassium. That's basically the whole conversation around fertilizers. But the push is, again, you see in countries like China, India, Russia, and the US. They are the biggest producers of urea. And 5 companies account for 26% of the phosphate-based fertilizer market. 4 companies control 50% of the market. 6 companies control 62% of the global supply. Again, Canada, Russia, Belarus, and China account for 75% of world of world production of potash fertilizers. What does this all mean for the African continent? When you hear Yara on the African continent, I picked out the most popular one. Yara in the African continent, their biggest partner is Agra. So when we hear conversations around Agra and its influence in the food systems on the African continent, this is what it means. The fertilizer sector is having an entry point through Agra and other partners. The fertilizer market in Africa is valued at about 15.3 billion and estimated to reach 20 billion by 2030. This is a huge push by mainly the African Development Bank, and that influence is also within the policy-making processes and influence at both the continental and regional levels, as well as our national levels, where this influence is coming up, and our policies and laws are starting to reflect an agribusiness model and a fertilizer push that we haven't known for a while. This is really huge. Agrochemical push across the continent is really huge. But what we are finding is that the export crops are mainly the ones that are being pushed to have the use of fertilizer. So basically, fertilizers enhance the push for industrial farming. Cotton, cereal, this is where we are seeing a lot of the growing of fertilizer. Oil palm as well, the use of fertilizer. We are seeing a push that is getting farmers into more debt. The growth of monocultures, diversity in farming is compromised because smallholder farming cannot happen within an industrial farming system. We have a huge concern around health implications. And of course, a rising amount of greenhouse gas emissions, soils and water contamination that we are starting to experience across the continent. And of course, as I start to wind up, the biggest discussion around the poultry sector, and I think we need to really be concerned because this is an area that we are rich in as Africans. But we see that the main 2 hybrids in the world, Tyson and Ross, they breed livestock for about 98% of broilers in the US. They account for 95% of industrial breeds in Brazil. And of course, you see the statistics there, and they're all worrying. But the one thing to take away from here is that 3 companies, Tyson Foods, EW Group, and Hendrix Genetics, dominate the global poultry genetics market. And why should we be concerned as Africans? What does that situation look like in Africa? In Southern Africa and Eastern Africa, Tyson and EW Group have merged with regional partners over the past decade. An example is in Ethiopia, where Tyson Foods, through its subsidiary company Cobb Vantress, incorporated, partnered with One Egg to combat hunger and child malnutrition through providing egg protein. Cobb Vantress is interested in poultry breeding. That's their core business. In Zambia, it's a hub for regional exports on chicken. Tyson and EW Group dominate the entire market, holding 45% and 55% of market shares respectively. And what I would like to take away from this is that compromising local and indigenous chicken varieties is really a big thing here. Indigenous chickens across Africa account for 80% of the chicken population. An entry of Tyson, EW Group, and all the others that are interested in Africa's poultry sector means that we are looking at our indigenous varieties disappearing and being replaced by these varieties that we see. Nutrition and altering diets of Africans. We see the growth of broilers and layers and how they are being marketed separately, which was never the case on the African continent, but now that is happening. The commercial production of chicken to sustain big agriculture, to sustain the production and supply in supermarket chains, and the commercial breeding of chicken to be able to support an industrial-based poultry production system. And of course, this further pushes the corporate concentration of the sectors that we know of. So what's the way forward? We say in the report, actions are urgently needed to take down the monopoly power of these corporations and to get power back in the hands of the world's food producers, workers, and consumers. So as we have spoken from the time we started, it is important that we start speaking about systems that are context-based that address our issues, that speak to smallholder farmers' plight and their existence on the African system, I mean, within the African context. But also there are campaigns already, the Global Stop UPOV campaign, which is really gaining ground and speaking about the protection of our seed systems within the African continent. Stop the African Continental Free Trade Area. Comrades, the African Continental Free Trade Area is exactly where a lot of the policies and policy frameworks and laws across the continent are going to affect us. And we need to be able to keep our eye on it and also say no to it and say no to FTAs in general. And also there's a campaign against toxic pesticides that is ongoing, which is led by PELAM, the PELAM Association. And I think it would be great to also get involved in that. But there are also more struggles that I haven't been able to capture here, which would be worthwhile to look into so that we can continue the struggle to protect food and seed systems across the continent. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Comrade Susan, for that elaborate presentation. And of course, you've painted the picture of the players and the areas that they are targeting. And of course, I also want to remind the participants that a link has been shared on the chat for those who might want to maybe go through the report further. So at this point, I would also welcome Comrade Barbara, who from ETC, again, just to also expound on that, but maybe with a more focus on the digitalization, who are the key players and how is it impacting us? So welcome, Comrade Barbara.
Thank you very much, Sidi. And it's a pleasure for me to be on this webinar on this very important day where we commemorate food sovereignty. I'll kindly ask that I switch off my video because of the internet here where I am, and I hope that's okay.
No problem, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. If Mateus can share my presentation, please. Yeah, so thank you very much. I think Susan has really done a great job in terms of breaking down what the report is all about. And I'll really just go, next slide, please. Yeah, so this report, I think Susan has really done justice in terms of really breaking down what is happening on the continent, in the world, and how corporate concentration is playing out. But I just wanted to add that just before you go to the next slide, I just wanted to add that corporate concentration in the food system is now being enabled by digitalization. Every sector of the industrial food chain is being transformed into a digital enterprise with corporate actors in agriculture, partnering with the big tech companies. And so the logic is that these partnerships are intended to have an integration between the companies that sell the products to the farmers and those that control the flow of data. So this report really highlighted the corporate investment in new technologies like digital platforms, artificial intelligence, gene editing, which are likely to deepen corporate power in food systems, and really looks at how the big companies are buying smaller companies in the relevant sectors to forge alliances with big tech for the food to expand their dominance in the food sector. So it's important to understand that all this is being fueled by digitalization. Next slide. So what is digitalization? Digitalization of food systems. Digitalization of food systems is the application of digital tools, strategies, and business models to food and agriculture, especially the agri-food value chain. And here we are talking about big data, blockchain, all these data platforms, the data sensors, the biodigital technologies, the fusion of biology now into digital, into the digital realm now, it's biodigital technology. This is where the big data and computing tools are now enabling biology to be manipulated for example, synthetic biology, CRISPR, and to mention but a few. So there's also issues on the application of digital tools also relates to microbiome analysis, molecular communication, and nutrigenomics. Second slide. Next slide. So digitalization in Africa is, like I've said, is being fueled by the creation of established platforms and the new mobile apps that are targeting every part of Africa's food supply chain. Right now, according to the statistics of 2024, 38% of Africans are online compared to the global average of 68%. Digitalization is more or less powered, obviously, by the internet and mobile connectivity. And mobile phone penetration is now growing rapidly, with over 500 million users across Africa by 2025. So there are key dominant countries that are really progressing in terms of internet and mobile connectivity, and these are Nigeria, South Africa, Egypt, and Kenya. And these account for over half of all cellular subscriptions in Africa. So connectivity is also the fuel to digital agriculture. And accelerating this internet connectivity is, though it's uneven across countries, but has been a key driver for the emergence and growth of digital technologies in Africa and the agricultural food sectors. I also wanted to highlight that the digital push is not just in food and agriculture. We have the digitalization now of land, where we are seeing a lot of new registries, land registries, being digitalized across Africa. And digitalization is also being pushed to the seeds, the digital seeds. We have digital seed inspection processes. It's playing out as digital seed variety registers to digitalize DNA of plant genetic material. Don't just stay on that slide. Digital sequencing of seed is also going on, and the plants and breed varieties are now circulating around the globe in the form of patented genetic data. So while at the same time, the physical exchange of seed is now being made illegal in some countries. So seeds are also digital commodities. I think Mariam will talk more about that in her presentation. Next slide. So when we look at this slide, we are seeing that there's now a convergence between the corporate agriculture actors that are promoting digital tools beyond farmer apps. And in this one, we are realizing that many farmers are now being pushed to integrate drones, satellite imaging, GIS. All these are to track irrigation, monitor plants and soil. And they have partnered also with various drone companies. For example, Syngenta calls its drone-oriented operations the digital data capture. It is which is really similar, and it's intended to collect data on farmers' practices and data on insights on the images from the drones, the scanning of the fields, and the generating of high-definition images and data about soil pests and diseases. So the drones are now, the push for drones is now something that the corporate agriculture actors are doing to promote digital tools beyond the farmer apps. Next slide, please. Yeah, so this is just a brief portrait to talk about the key players in the African agriculture context, but this is mostly about Kenya. I'll share more about what's happening elsewhere. But from the Kenyan perspective, for example, Kenya has various apps and is actually now termed as the Silicon Savannah of Africa because of the nature of digital technologies that are being promoted in the country. And one of the digital promotions is DigiFarm. And this one is, providing small farmers in Kenya with chatbot services. and sells them as inputs, crop insurance, and all this is fueled by the Safaricom M-Pesa digital money platform. So this is an example of one of the players in Kenya especially. And when you look at the platform, it also partners with other corporations. And for example, Arifu provides DigiFarm with advice on how to farm via its chatbot app. And Arifu gets paid by corporate partners like Syngenta to recommend its products to farmers. The Syngenta Foundation also owns Acre, which provides crop insurance to DigiFarm. So all these are digital. These are digital tools that farmers are using in their various contexts. Another digital tool, for example, in Ghana, is called Esoko. This collects data, it conducts biometric profiling, it provides agronomic services, and helps agribusiness reach rural communities. Esoko partners with ICRA. ICRA is Accelerating Impacts of CJIR, Climate Research for Africa. So this is also another digital tool in Ghana that is being promoted. And we have also another digital tool called Hello Tractor, which has been called the Uber for the farm. And this digital platform connects tractor owners to farmers and is connected to the cloud, enabling data to be collected and transmitted. So this is also a partnership with John Deere and is supported by the CYMMYT, the International Maize and Wheat Improvement Center. And I think Susan talked about John Deere and its influence on the continent. So those are a couple of examples of how data is being used by the different platforms across countries. And just given 2 examples of Kenya and Ghana. Next slide. Yeah, it's important to note that they're not only partnering with corporate actors. Now, the corporate actors are now partnering with our governments to promote digitalization in agriculture. Susan talked about this, about AGRA and AGRA's role. But I just wanted to say from the African Union perspective, digitalization is now being supported at the continental level, at the regional level, and African Union is the champion through its NEPAD lead role and pushing for digitalization of agriculture to adopt pushing for digitalization of agriculture. And with the support of World Bank, they are supporting, they have developed, the digital transformation strategy for Africa. Am I too fast?
A little bit, but
Oh.
also there was just a mishap with the interpretation. Please proceed.
Okay, great. Okay, yeah. So I was just saying that the African Union is now partnering with NEPAD to push for digitalization of agriculture on the continent with support of the World Bank. And they have now come up with they've come up with the digital transformation strategy for Africa. And in this digital strategy for Africa, the African Union views digital technology as being capable of opening up vast untapped potential for farmers, investors, and entrepreneurs, and to improve the efficiency of food production and consumption in Africa. So you can see that digitalization is the game changer in this strategy, and it's being promoted as the bullet to improving efficiency of food production and consumption in Africa. So that's one of the important aspects to understand in terms of policies that are being pushed from an African Union perspective. As Susan noted, AGRA, Alliance for Green Revolution in Africa, please go back, aims to lead digital agriculture development by connecting governments and smallholder farmers. And what they're doing is that they have become a lead coordinator in digital agriculture, liaising with government, small farmers, and they have, in partnership, reaching so many farmers across Ghana, Nigeria, Burkina Faso, Mali, Tanzania, Mozambique. And they have come up with a technology company called Cropin. Cropin is developing digital extension program that links farmers to agronomists. And this is intended still to promote digital strategies in agriculture using artificial intelligence, machine learning, remote sensing, and it's the proponents of Cropin are Google and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And AGRA is the champion of this. So AGRA, in addition to that, AGRA is developing partnerships with Hello Tractor in Kenya, Hello Tractor in Nigeria, Trotro Tractor in Ghana, and ETC Agro in Tanzania. All these are digital companies that aim to increase access to mechanization for smallholder farmers. In Rwanda, AGRA is partnering with Kumwe Harvest and IBM to use AI to find maize producers and to source markets for maize when the crop is ready. So this partnership is fueling the digitalization on the continent, but it's also important to note that AGRA has failed over time in terms of the promises that they've made, and there are numerous studies about the failed promises of AGRA. I won't go into that, but just to show you that AGRA is now one of the lead proponents of digitalization on the continent. Next slide. Next slide, please. Yeah, so what does this mean? And what does this mean for us as Africans? I think the most important thing that we can say is that it's creating a new form of inequality and risks farmers in the sense that it's going to potentially exclude farmers. As I noted earlier, that there is a lack of connectivity and access to smartphones. Not all parts of Africa are connected to the internet. So there is a challenge in terms of the adoption of the adoption of digital services for these kinds of things. But the fact that farmers are going to have less power to make decisions about the uneven distribution of benefits, and also it's going to exacerbate existing inequalities, leaving farmers behind, and then others are, using digitalization, but at the same time, it's creating a huge digital divide amongst farmers. I think the other important aspect that we really need to talk about is the digitalization of traditional knowledge, such as indigenous seed varieties. These are already being exploited by powerful actors without the knowledge of farmers. And civil society organizations, we need to start to protect our indigenous seed varieties, because most of them, as I've mentioned, have become digital tools to create databases and libraries for locally developed seeds. So there's discussions about, and there's a lot of work being done by civil society movements, especially in the creation of seed banks. I think that's something we really need to push for. And with regard to data privacy, I think that is also an important aspect. Like I said earlier, data is really the new oil. So a lot of the digital tools that are being promoted on the continent are being promoted based on the data that they are getting from farmers. And in most cases, farmers do not have any idea about the data that is being used. And recently, when we had a tech assessment done in Kenya, in Makueni and Muranga, the farmers' concern was that many of the applications are being misused. They don't have information. They're being asked to log on to so many platforms, but also they have no idea how their data is being collected or processed. And we need to, I think we'll talk about it later, but we really need to talk to farmers about the need to protect their data. Yeah, like I said earlier, that there's a general lack of transparency regarding how data is shared by developers. And in some cases, the developers are sharing this data amongst themselves. They're sharing the data without the farmer's knowledge. And I'll give you an example of the Kiamis. During the Kiamis is a data platform in Kenya. And farmers are made to believe that their data is used solely for government agricultural support. But some farmers, for instance, have been particularly concerned about the GPS data on their land, how it's being collected without their knowledge, and the lack of transparency and informed consent. So we need to talk to farmers about their data and how we can protect their data. So when it comes to misalignment of technology with farmer contexts, most of the digital technologies that are being developed by the private sector are not developed for smallholder farmers. They're developed for big commercial farmers, and they lack context. And most of the times, the digital agriculture is framed within a narrative of smart agriculture, but it does not have does not have the influence of the farmers involved. And we're not saying that technology should not be, that farmers should not use technology. We are saying that farmers should be at the heart of the development of the technology. So the technology that's being developed is being developed in the US, developed in other countries, and brought to Africa. And it is totally misaligned with our context and with our needs. So technology can be developed with agroecology paradigm and farmers understanding the needs, and developed with an understanding of the farmer needs. Next slide.
Yeah, so maybe you should be winding up now. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm winding up now. Yeah. Yeah, so I'll just highlight this, that, one of the things that we're trying to do and to ask people on the ground to do is to be more aware and to have the ability to say no to certain technology where possible. And so we're also just talking about having technology assessments done where we are assessing new and emerging technologies. And this is a participatory process involving different people, indigenous people, the farmers, the governments, coming together and assessing whether these technologies that are being developed actually are suitable for their context. So this is a picture of technology assessment in Makueni in August. And I just wanted to share that this is something that AfriTAP is working on, Africa Technology Assessment Platform, where we are working on a methodology that can be shared across social movements, and to be more aware of the kinds of technologies that are being deployed in their contexts. Next slide. Yeah, so my last recommendation, and the recommendations I can just highlight, as I've been saying earlier, we need ownership of digital data, transparency, ensuring that innovation benefits smallholder farmers and not the large farmers and corporations, like I've mentioned earlier. But we also need to start to think about what an Africa data framework could look like. And those are discussions that we are, in the process of having. And we need to start to think of how we as Africans can control our data, and instead of data being controlled from elsewhere, and we are, the recipients. Like I've talked about technology assessments. I've talked about the need to raise awareness and educate farmers about data privacy and digital technologies, enhance the knowledge of civil society farmers on data privacy and protection. And lastly, I have said that we need to start to identify agroecological appropriate technology that is developed for farmers, with farmers and for their benefit. Last slide. In conclusion, I just wanted to read this quote, which I find very important, and I think I've made this conclusion in a number of places, but I think for everyone who needs to hear this. I was recently reading Empire of AI by Karen Howe. And this is one of the quotes that she made in her book. And those who successfully rally for a technology's creation are those who have the power and resources to do the rallying. As they turn their ideas into reality, the vision they impose of what the technology is and whom it can benefit is thus the vision of the narrow elite, imbued with all the blind spots and the self-serving philosophies. Only through cataclysmic shifts in society or powerful organized resistance can a technology transform from enriching the few to lifting the many. Thank you very much. I hope I didn't take too much time, and that was my presentation about digitalization in Africa. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Comrade Barbara. And of course, the topic is very interesting, especially at a time when many people or digital migration is being promoted as the panacea or the solution to the problems. And of course, you've raised critical issues in terms of the way forward. One of them is the assessment of the tech tools that are being brought, and also raising awareness to the farmers. So as maybe we are going to the end of the presentations, I would at this point invite Comrade Mariam from African Center for Biodiversity. And of course, as I said earlier, sorry, Comrade Mariam will speak to us generally on, like for example, now we have got the legal frameworks that are being relied on, and some of them promote plant variety protections. We have issues of the sea treaty, and of course, she's also going to speak to us more about the ongoing cases and of course, living case studies like in Zambia and in other countries where already we are seeing this capture going on. So without wasting my time, welcome, Comrade Mariam.
Thank you very much, David, and thank you very much to LVC for inviting me to be part of this panel and this webinar. We accept this invitation with a great deal of gratitude, and we're very honored to be part of this process. So I've been asked to address you on the latest trends and key entry points in seed and PVP, agrotoxins, and so on. So I think that I want to say that we have noticed that the most recent trends concerning the onslaught on farmer-managed seed systems and farmers' rights have been in the realm of UPOV 1991. And what we've been witnessing is that UPOV itself, as well as its member states, have been key in or instrumental in waging a global war against farmers' rights, not only in Africa, but worldwide. And we've also seen that UPOV as an organization uses a lot of misleading information, communication that resembles almost an advertising campaign and a very one-sided set of advice which they give countries to coerce them to draft or review their plant variety protection laws. Now, you must remember that new laws based on UPOV 91 do not manifest itself from the ether. Many UPOV members, particularly from Europe, play a decisive role in driving the countries of the South into the arms of UPOV. In particular, the countries where large multinational companies are based. And one of the examples of this is the EU trade agreement with Comoros, Madagascar, Mauritius, Seychelles, and Zimbabwe. The trade agreements are commonly referred to as economic partnership agreements, EPAs. And it's very telling that the EU proposal on intellectual property rights, right at the beginning of the EP negotiations, have a very, very direct wording. And it goes as follows: each party shall protect plant variety rights in accordance with the International Convention for the Protection of New Varieties of Plants, UPOV. So you can see that it's unashamed, and this is a very, very inextricable link to the conclusion of any so-called successful EPAs with a number of African countries. Now, I don't know how many of you know that there has been this 20-year-old agreement between about 34 countries in Africa and the US called the African Growth and Opportunity Act, AGOA. It expired at the end of September. And Trump has also imposed tariffs on several African countries, Lesotho, South Africa. And this AGOA has not been renewed, which means that many countries in Africa have to find new outlets for the export crops and other commodities. And we possibly will see the proliferation of new bilateral and multilateral trade agreements. And we may see an uptake of more countries in Africa of UPOV 91 if new trade agreements have agreements or clauses that compel African governments to join UPOV 91. So we have to watch the space very carefully. I think we can also turn to Zambia as a striking example of the massive influence UPOV has, not only UPOV, but also the World Bank on Zambia's legislation. Interesting is that the Zambian government, unbeknown to it, or it probably made a mistake, sent a draft of its plant variety protection law to its stakeholders in a Word document. And when they looked at who the author was, it was very clearly the UPOV Secretariat in Geneva. So you can see that African governments have very little sovereignty over its seed sector and the future of its seed sector. And in fact, the document still contained comments and recommendations from UPOV, dictated to by UPOV staff in Geneva, in line with UPOV 91. But of course, the Zambian Alliance for Agroecology and Biodiversity, ZAB, as well as the Rural Women's Assembly, outrightly rejected the proposed bill in its entirety. What has also been making headlines, and we've seen a lot of action, has been in Benin. Benin, it's a very curious case because it's one of the countries in Africa that does not have a well-established corporate seed sector. So it is very curious that Benin has made so many attempts to join UPOV 91. And we've also noticed a huge pushback by our comrades in Benin, and they've been supported by a lot of groups. Grain and others have been supporting them in pushing back, as well as AFSA, Pan-African groups and allies. And there's been many campaigns to push Benin not to join UPOV 91, but the struggle still continues in that country. And then at the regional level, we've done a lot of work in the past on the AU guidelines on plant variety protection, on its seed laws, biotech laws, but it's been very quiet for a couple of years. ARIPO also has been quite quiet in terms of the implementation of its protocol on plant variety protection, but what has recently surfaced has been a draft of the East African Community Seed and Plant Variety Bill, which was circulated for comments. And we looked at it, it was just 11 pages, very thin, and it had a chapter dealing with the seed law, which is and a chapter based on plant variety protection, both based on harmonization principles. And the first part dealing with seed laws is basically trying to expedite the proliferation of corporate seed in the East African Community countries without having to go country by country by country to get approval and for expeditious certification to take place. It's essentially a commercial piece of law. It does not address the issue of farmers' rights at all. And it's still in evolution because regulations have to be made to bring it into force. In regard to the chapter dealing with plant variety protection, there's no exceptions provided for breeders, exceptions to breeders' rights, and it doesn't deal with farmer-managed seed systems or farmers' rights at all. As I said, it's essentially a commercial seed law designed to protect the commercial interest of the breeder and the corporate seed sector. Then turning to the international level, the most important international agreement is the International Treaty on Plant Genetic Resources for Food and Agriculture. We know that this treaty entered into force more than 20 years ago, and you'll be surprised to hear that more than 7 million plant genetic resources for food and agriculture, often referred to as PGRFA, materials have been transferred and reported to date. This means that this material has been put into the multilateral system through research institutions, through our gene banks and universities, and 6,200 standard material transfer agreements have been signed with more than 1 and 16,000 total SMTs signed. But in all these years, only 6 users has made any monetary contributions to the benefit sharing fund. Regarding what is next on the agenda for the governing body meeting in Lima, in Peru, in November 2025, there are some proposals that are designed to undermine farmers' rights and their food and seed systems, as they fail to include safeguards for farmers' rights, particularly the protection for the right to save, use, exchange, and sell farm-safe seed, and to safeguard traditional knowledge associated with PGRFA, and to ensure informed participation in sharing of benefits. If adopted, the proposals on the table could prioritize corporate interests over those of small farmers, indigenous communities, and food security, legitimizing the current non-transparent and unaccountable functioning of the multilateral system, and promoting biopiracy as well as digital biopiracy, thereby compromising both seed and food sovereignty. So that's kind of what's happening at national levels, at the regional levels, and international levels in terms of key trends. Of course, it's a moving target, and if I was to ask to make a presentation in 6 months' time, it will look very different because more things would have unfolded. But this is kind of a snapshot of some of the key trends. The key entry points remain the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Peasants and Other People Working in Rural Areas, UNEP-DROP, which complements the International Treaty on Plant Genetic Resources for Food and Agriculture, in particular, the treaty's Article 9 dealing with farmers' rights. And I think that it's important to bear in mind 4 main things that UNDROP does. First, it reaffirms as well as further elaborates on the scope of peasants' rights to seeds and related state obligations. 2, it firmly positions peasant rights, including their right to seed, as a human right, and that this takes precedence over other legal norms, like intellectual property rights, for example. 3, it brings to bear accountability mechanisms linked with defining peasant rights as human rights guarantees. And 4th, it clearly defines the role and obligations of UN agencies. Now, inasmuch as this is extremely promising, I have to say that I have my doubts that this will see the light of day in terms of domestic legislation and implementation, because for more than 20 years we were unable to get implementation of Article 9 of the treaty, which deals with farmers' rights. And there are so many authoritarian regimes on the continent, military dictatorships, that pay scant attention to human rights. Some countries like Ethiopia have banned human rights organizations from existing. So yes, it looks good on paper, but is this really an entry point is something for us to debate. I'd like to turn to agrotoxins to wrap up my input. So on agrotoxins, I have noticed that there's a great deal of interest on the continent regarding the support of what we call a double standards campaign. This is a campaign that has two components to it, okay? So the one is to pressurize the EU not to export to Africa agrotoxins that the EU has banned. The second component is to pressurize national African governments to ban pesticides in their own countries that have been banned in Europe. Now, in addition to this, there's a great deal of interest anyway to ban at the national level highly hazardous pesticides. We call them HHPs. In South Africa, a highly hazardous pesticide which caused the deaths of several primary school children in Soweto late last year was banned. It's called Turbofos. And a high court in Kenya has allowed a landmark decision to go through, which allows an environmental petition challenging the use of HHPs in Kenya to proceed as a class action, opening the way for individuals and communities affected by exposure to join the case and pursue compensation. Now, in her ruling by the Justice Grace Kemai, she granted the request by the African Center for Corrective and Preventive Action to expand a petition into a class action, because at the heart of the case is a call for a judicial order to outlaw specific pesticides, including glyphosate, paraquat, chlorpyrifos, and so on. These chemicals, the petition states, are banned or heavily restricted in other countries, but remain in widespread use in Kenya on essential crops. I want to end by saying that the double standards campaign is an interesting one, and it's good that we support it because we can get a lot of support by our European colleagues. And with their resources, their communication strategies, their advocacy abilities, they can assist us in putting pressure on the EU, as well as assist us in putting pressure on our governments to ban HHPs that have been banned in Europe. But the problem is that not all highly hazardous pesticides registered and in use in Africa are exported from Europe. 43% of the highly hazardous pesticides are herbicides. And many of them, I think 48% of all pesticides used in the world are generics. Many of them come from China, Malaysia, and other Asian countries. So if we are importing generics and they're coming from Asia, then the double standards campaign will not make any sense. So one can't put all your eggs in one basket. You have to, on the agrotoxin issue, keep all your options open. You can do a double standards campaign, but you have to have your own national level campaign dealing with national circumstances, unrelated necessarily to where the agrochemical is imported from. Because it doesn't matter whether it's imported from Europe or the Far East. The point is that we want it banned in our own countries. So with that, I think I'll stop here. And if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them. And I would like to thank you once again for giving me this opportunity to address you. Thank you so much.
Comrade Mariam, for that. And of course, you've actually captured the issue of UNDROP, and of course, also raised a red flag as to the process of domestication, given the history that has been learned from the plant treaty. But of course, your presentation has also highlighted the dangers of the bilateral agreements that might take place, because of course I know recently a delegation from the Trade Ministry in Kenya was in Washington, trying to request the American government to extend the AGOA for at least a few months. So that actually shows the areas that we have to look at as we are fighting back this onslaught that is taking place within the food sector. And of course, I know by now we've been having, let me say, close to 1 hour because we started a bit late, or slightly a bit 1 hour, 20 minutes. At this point in time, of course, as we are preparing to have presentations from members of La Via Campesina, and of course, I said we'll be having KPL, who is going to give us a brief, let me say, not more than 5 minutes on the food cooperative. And of course, we have ZIMSOF, which is talking about seeds and agroecology. We have got SEAf Uganda talking about agroecology business hub. I'm not sure if they're here. Then we also have the water, who will be talking to us about agroecology markets, centers, and of course, Copaco. If they're here, they're also going to be talking about food sovereignty restaurant. And these are some of the efforts that are being done by the members of La Via Campesina within the various territories that they work to try to fight back and create alternatives. But before that, I will take this chance now to maybe in the next 5 to 10 minutes, if we have any participant or any member who has a question or maybe might want to seek some clarification on presentations that have been done here. And so feel free to raise up your hand, or even if you have a comment, you are able to send the questions via the chat, where we'll also be reading them. And maybe just also to try to recap the presentations as we are waiting for people who want to have their views or comments. The presenters have actually not only spoken about the challenges, but they've also given us actually real way forwards. And of course, one of the issues that have come back is how do we cut the power of corporates back? How do we fight back? And I think these are a critical issue that is very, very much important to us, and that also will form part of the brief fight back presentations. And of course, issues of campaigns against toxic pesticides and fertilizers. Of course, we have got a mention of the Global Stop Youth Farm campaign. And of course, I know there have been efforts, a lot of efforts led by GRAIN and other organizations, La Via Campesina, etc., trying to also campaign against the African Continental Free Trade Area agreement that is being also pushed a lot. One of the other issues that have been mentioned here, which is very critical, is the tech assessment or assessment of the digital tools that are being provided, the technologies that are being shared, and of course also assessing the legal drivers of such. And of course, it's very, very much important also to maybe break this down to now in country. And of course, we have had mentions of M-Pesa, digital platforms in Kenya. I've heard about the Hello Tractor, you see, where farmers are able to ask for these. And some of these things, they need assessment to provide evidence that we can use for awareness. And of course, issues to do with data sovereignty, the ownership of digital tools. And recently in Addis Ababa, AFSA convened the first African Digital Conference, where several initiatives were presented from different countries, where people are trying to come up with safe spaces for the peasant farmers, the consumers, and the small-scale food producers to be able to be sure about data security. So issues to do with, like a mention of farmers being unaware that maybe the GPS data of their land is being taken, for example. Farmers sharing information, and then they're not aware where the information is going to. We are having, and of course, a critical issue recently in Kenya, we have heard about digital land title deeds. We are talking about digitizing degrees, university degrees, and certificates. And that was part of the issues that were being discussed in Nairobi recently in the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. And of course, I think some of these reports highlight, and Comrade Mariam has actually mentioned about UNDROP, actually clarifying the peasants' rights as farmers, as human rights. And of course, creation of accountability mechanisms, and also providing the role of the United Nations agencies and the international organizations in supporting or funding. And of course, there will be a lot of debate right nowadays around issues to do with funding agroecology. We have had several initiatives and the government starting to speak about agroecology, but the question is that where is this fund going to, for example, and perhaps is it a way of just using the climate smart agriculture principles being clothed as agroecology, still to push funds in big tech companies coming to provide that. So I think the presenters is very okay, and maybe I don't know if there's anybody here who is maybe would want to raise an issue, and maybe if there's nobody, then I would go straight to maybe invite. I've seen Comrade, I saw Comrade Jacob.
Hello, Comrade Sidi.
Oh yes, Oliat, how are you?
I'm good, and you, my friend?
I'm very good. I'm very good. Welcome. Do you have any issue to raise? Welcome to the floor.
Yeah, I just want to share something. It's not an issue as such, but I think it's good for me to say something because it's long now since we last met, even Matthias and the team, in fact. So my issue is that I have heard the presenters, they've been talking about a lot of things, how the multinational corporates are operating and where they are going, what they are doing. And that's true. We don't have to hide the truth. But on our side as peasants, where are we in terms of promoting what belongs to us? Because they are in their own business, these multinational corporates. They are doing their business as usual. And we don't have the capacity and the power to stop them. But what we can do is only to make sure we promote what belongs to us. And if we are talking of production, let us increase the production. Because themselves, they are producing abundantly in large quantities. And they are doing packaging, whatever, and branding smartly, and it attracts everybody. So usually it is very important for us to think of what exactly should we do so that we can make them, we can make the masses understand what we are saying. I usually challenge most of the people, especially in such meetings, that we are denouncing the multinational corporates, but on the table where you will be sitting, there will be a bottle of water, distilled water prepared by these multinational companies. So how can we expect it to defeat someone whom we are promoting? The food we are eating while we are having these meetings, some of the things it's quite very difficult, and it will take us long, because we are the same people who are denouncing, and tomorrow we are seen holding some bottles of water made by these multinational companies. Even the food itself, you can see someone changing even the steps while he's pulling a trolley full of junky food. We are saying we are denouncing it. Does that make any sense, Sidi? So where are we going exactly? That's my worry always. I'm always worried about such behavior. Sometimes we are good at talking and doing this, but from here, there is lunch break. What type of food are we enjoying? Are we not feeding ourselves with the junky food? So that's my contribution, because I'm always worried about that one. Thank you.
The Oliat for that, and of course, Oliat has raised the issue of course, speaking about the onslaught, and we have seen the speakers actually analyzing to us the anatomy of the offenses, how are they manifesting themselves, and of course, some of them have also, or they have also raised the issues of what we can do, and Oliat is speaking about then how are we able to increase food production, how are we able to amplify also what we are doing, and of course maybe all that is concerned about, maybe we could be spending more time in analyzing our opponents or the people, the corporations are supposed to establishing real alternatives. And of course, I think the question is a general question to any of the speakers, and of course an issue that he has raised is an issue, for example, when we're talking about buying farmer foods or farmer systems, buying foods produced by the farmers under peasant agroecology within our own communities, within our own spaces, then in our own households or homesteads, then are we also practicing that by ordering from the farmers? And I think this is some of the responses or the issues we're going to get when we get specific presentation from the members who are also fighting back this capture. So maybe that question, is there any other question, or maybe any of the, yes, I can see Matthew's hand is up.
Yes, Sidi, just in the interest of time, and also because Oliat gave us just like the perfect segue really into now bringing what's happening on the ground. We also have a limitation of interpretation. We have Julia alone in the booth, and I know that she won't be able to hang on for much longer. I would like to suggest to you that perhaps we invite already Copaco, if they're in the room. We're ready to talk about the food that we eat and where we buy it. Copaco has a great example to share.
Sorry, comrade.
Thank you so much. I think that's okay. So maybe we can go straight to Copaco, and then maybe comrades from KPL, what who are here who want to speak, maybe be on the, maybe we can have 5 minutes at maximum because of time also. Yes.
Sorry, someone opened the microphone briefly. I think it was Kevin.
Yes. I'm sorry.
Kevin, welcome.
Yes. May I go ahead, or we wait for the next presentation?
Yeah, just go ahead briefly, and then we go to the presentation as Copaco is preparing. Yes,
Thank you very much, Alan. Thank you very much, Comrade Sidi. I'll keep it very brief. My name is Kevin Oriri. I'm an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. I specialize in human rights litigation, and particularly on consumer rights. I work very closely with the Kenyan Peasants League. We are currently in court challenging the adoption of GMO products in Kenya, and of course also considering joining the fight in court against the use of the pesticides and herbicides produced by the multinational companies. I would say, from my experience, one area that needs immense support, especially in court, is actual raw evidence, scientific research by credible practitioners. They may be molecular biologists, they may be oncologists who have actually done research regarding the effects of these products on people as well as on the environment, to take to court, because most of the time we take very serious cases to court, speak about these things which are well known, of course, in the public domain. Unfortunately, the technicalities of court require evidence that can stand that test. So I'm happy to be part of this conversation and witnessing all these organizations that are speaking about this issue. And it's one thing that perhaps I'll put to the organizations to think about as we come together. Is there research that has been done from scientists around our networks that can be shared to organizations that are taking these battles to court? Otherwise, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Comrade Kevin. Our advocates in the matter that the Kenya Peasant League, among other partners, have filed in court against GMOs. And of course, as he has said, there is a matter already active on pesticides, where again, as Kenya Peasant League, we are considering to enjoin ourselves after the High Court actually set the open. And of course, his question is about that. I think maybe we'll also have one of the speakers respond to them, and maybe as we conclude. So maybe I would take this chance to welcome, I don't know who from Comrade, who from Copaco is around, Matheus? Do we
I
have
think
anybody
we
from
will
Copaco?
invite Melanie, Madame Ekuchu.
Okay, Melanie from Copaco, welcome. Maybe between 3 to 5 minutes because of time. Melanie? Do we have Melanie?
She's in the room, CD.
Yes.
Maybe she's facing some difficulties. Of course, Paco would present their
translation.
food. They are food sovereignty restaurant they have. Maybe we can wait a little bit for her to come back, and we move to the next one. Also, because time is
Okay.
against us now.
Of course, now as Melanie is preparing, maybe I will take this to welcome Comrade Jacob from Kenya Peasant League. We had lined Comrade Evelyn, but she's engaged in the within the cluster. So, Comrade Jacob, just briefly, 3 minutes, you will tell us what is food corp, why the food corps, and what are some of the impacts or that or maybe a future challenges. 3 to 5 minutes. Jacob, welcome.
Okay, thank you so much. I think I'm heard from your end, and I'm Comrade Jacob from Kenyan Peasants League, the SEAf region, and I will talk briefly on the initiative of food cooperative in Kenyan Peasants League, and of course, food cooperative is a farmer managed market within Kenyan Peasants League clusters. And also for the allies, we have the consortiums that are practicing the same. And mostly it is involving the selling and buying of the products from the farmers and also the consumers. Of course, this idea came from the survey that we did around last year about the food consumption in the community, whereby we did a baseline survey on elders and also food consumption in major urban areas within our reach. And we realized that there is high food consumption within urban areas and also at local levels at close to maybe 300 per day in a very moderate day that you have not balanced too much diet. And of course, this one we approached it through what we call online observatory form. That is, we call it daily farm activity form that we normally send to the farmers, and then they give information about the foods that they produce and also what they consume daily. And basically, this information is always very useful to help us generate what are we expecting in our food cooperatives. And for the last part of that form, it is a Google form. It is showing concern on what do you consume daily? What do you consume daily, and how much can you use when you're using money to purchase food daily? And of course, we have a team that is working on that. And then every week there is an update and calling for the farmers to bring those products to the market. And there has been a daily market shifting from the weekly. So of course, this one has really helped us to observe the consumption rate of the farmers. And of course, when I talk of the why the food cooperative was established, is that we realized that within our systems, within our taxation, within our systems of governance,
Yes.
at
Maybe you should
county
be
level, there is
finalizing now. You should be finalizing. Yes, maybe in a minute.
okay. There is high taxation, and it was trying to bridge the taxation taxation rate. You find that small scale food producers are being taxed high, and also there is a aspect of financial self reliance through food co-fund, and also there is increased food production. We are trying to increase food production through labor solidarity, whereby we have mobilized the articulations to go and help farmers in terms of food production, in tilling, in plowing, and all that. And we have a really experienced high production within our areas. And just to conclude is that these are perfect alternative within the food within our systems, because I think Comrade Susan talked about the dangers of the partnerships that were brought by maybe other banks and all that. So the through food fund, we have enabled our farmers to have their own funds that are managed within the focal points.
Thank you so much, Comrade Jacob, for that. And of course, because of time, I don't know if we also have, I've seen SEAf Uganda. Is there anybody from SEAf Uganda? I think we might not be able to have the water because of some unavoidable circumstances. Maybe SEAf Uganda.
Yes.
Yes. Maybe you want to tell us briefly, maybe in 3 minutes, about the agroecology business hubs. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Sidi. I've been following the discussion very closely, and I thank the presenters, the previous presenters for the good, elaborate presentation, which has also enhanced our knowledge on most of the things. On the side of SEAf, we have the agroecology business hub, which is boosting market access for the agroecological grown products. So SEAf realized that in the recent years, the small-scale farmers are still struggling with the access to profitable markets for their products, particularly those ones which are grown agroecologically. So Agroecology Business Hub is initiated an initiative of SEAf Uganda to look at how the farmers can access and also get good prices for their products. And in this hub initiative, it is deeply rooted in empowering farmers not only to grow food, but also to market their product produced effectively through the components of capacity building. So in this hub, we do capacity building to ensure that the farmers are able to produce for the market. The hub also aids access to capital, where it gives capital through equipments to support and work to connect the farmers with the microfinance institutions and cooperatives. And this access to capital enables small-scale farmers to invest in productive and add value to their products for a better market. They also, the components also have the access to market itself, where the farmers are directly connected to the profitable markets. And we do this through trade fairs, exhibition, and buyer and the seller market. They get in touch directly. And this has also helped so many farmers to have eliminate the middlemen and also negotiate a fair price with the buyers and obtain maximum profit. And in addition to that, SEAf also has innovated what we call Kilimomat application. That is an online platform, market platform, where the farmers advertise their products. And that one is also, it aids the buyer market, the buyer-seller relationship, because the buyer get direct into contact with the seller and get the product they want, he or she
Thank you,
wants
Melanie.
at
Maybe you
the
can
the
be
fair
really,
price. Yes,
you
as
can,
I conclude,
yes,
this has helped the farmers a lot to market their products, but also as the hub, we also have the agroecology shop at the office. For those who are within Kampala, can easily get those products at the office. You can also go to our website of SEAf and you see all those products of Kilimomat on Kilimomat, and also read more about the agroecology business hub. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Comrade Masudi, for that. And of course, I've seen in the chat, Matthew's Melanie is saying you can open the mic, and she's raising her hand. So Melanie, maybe the floor is yours. If you can already now open your mic and hear me.
Mélanie, il faut... Ok, voilà. Elle est là.
Bonjour les amis. Bonjour à tous. Est-ce que vous m'entendez? Allô, bonjour.
Yes, yes, yes. Go ahead.
C'est bon? Julia, bonjour. OK. Et merci et bonne fête de la Journée internationale de la souveraineté alimentaire à tout le monde. Nous sommes la Confédération paysanne du Congo, membre de LVC SEAf. Nous avons mis en place dans le cadre des droits à l'alimentation, qui est un droit humain, nous avons mis en place les restaurants de la souveraineté alimentaire qui est à Kinshasa. Je crois que nous avons visité ça avec les amis de la Via Campesina lors de la rencontre régionale de 2024. Qu'est-ce qui se passe dans ces restaurants de la souveraineté alimentaire? D'abord, c'est un endroit pour le partage de notre culture congolaise. Nous consommons congolais et ces produits que nous utilisons ne viennent pas de n'importe quel marché. Ce sont les agriculteurs familiaux qui produisent les poissons, parce que nous avons l'association de CAPEM, donc coopérative des pêcheurs de Mwanda, qui est au Congo central, où nous avons mis en place ici sur place un point de vente de poissons de haute mer de l'océan Atlantique. Nous avons un point au Congo et nous avons un point à Kikwit, qui sont des fournisseurs du restaurant de la souveraineté alimentaire. Parce que les produits qu'on vend à Kinshasa sont tous importés et ces produits ne sont pas sains à la consommation. C'est ainsi que nous avons mis en place ces restaurants de la souveraineté alimentaire. À part les poissons, il y a des légumes qui proviennent de notre centre agroécologique. C'est là provient la nourriture que nous préparons au restaurant et tout ce qui est farine de manioc, farine de maïs. Nous prenons ça dans nos associations comme le groupement des femmes professionnelles agricoles qui sont dans la transformation des manioc et maïs en farine, et y compris l'association des jeunes APGA qui sont dans la fabrication des jus naturels. Donc, nous sommes là pour redonner la valeur à nos semences, pour redonner la valeur à notre culture, à notre tradition et pour donner la solidarité entre les membres. Parce qu'à Kinshasa, si vous arrivez par exemple à Pont-Gabi, vous verrez vraiment des boutiques seulement où on vend des pesticides, des semences OGM. Alors, nous protégeons nos semences et nous avons mis en place des banques de semences pour garder nos semences pour les semis prochains. Et nous avons des produits bio qui viennent de l'agriculture familiale et paysanne. Ces marchés permettent à beaucoup de gens qui est les restaurants de la souveraineté alimentaire, c'est un marché local qui n'est pas seulement à préparer la nourriture, mais aussi d'acheter les produits de nos membres et de transformer à une nourriture saine, propre et juste. Voilà un peu ce que je voulais dire par rapport à notre agriculture, à notre restaurant. C'est pour garantir une alimentation locale. Et nous protégeons notre environnement parce que nos produits viennent des eaux douces et des forêts qui ont des systèmes agroécologiques qui dépendent des jachères. Et nous utilisons dans les champs où on produit l'alimentation qu'on mange au niveau des restaurants, on utilise des pratiques agroécologiques et les aliments sont protégés. On utilise des plantes naturelles comme biopesticides afin de protéger l'être humain. Et notre restaurant de la souveraineté alimentaire ne nourrit pas seulement les paysans, mais toute la communauté environnante qui est là-bas dans la commune périphérique et rurale de l'Ancélé, au niveau de Kimpoko. Donc voilà un peu ce que je voulais partager avec nous, qu'il y a un commerce qui est équitable au niveau interne où les membres apportent leurs produits locaux bio. Il y a la nourriture qu'on s'échange pour renforcer notre solidarité. Il y a la production locale que nous sommes en train de valoriser et il y a le respect de l'environnement partout là où nous sommes en train de nourrir la population de Kinshasa et environnante. Nous utilisons les épices naturelles, nous utilisons la farine faite par nos propres membres, qui est propre parce qu'il respecte aussi l'environnement et nous ne détruisons pas notre écosystème là où nous travaillons à Kimpoko. J'ai dit et je vous remercie. Merci.
Thank you.
Hello?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Comrade Melanie. Not sure because of time. We had Zimsoft. I don't know if Zimsoft can take 2 minutes or 3 minutes. But I think for the 3 presentations, I think they have given us what is happening on the ground. And of course, some of these issues, as Comrade Oliat was speaking about, how do we amplify some of these initiatives? How do we even conduct research on the gaps, on the challenges, and how can we make them better? I think this is some of the ways. And of course, comrades, I think from my end, we have taken close to 1 hour 45 minutes because we started a bit late. And maybe before I give Comrade Matthews maybe to lead us into the session of the conclusion of this webinar, I would maybe want to give at least a minute or so to the 3 panelists or the 3 speakers, just to maybe give us like what is their final comments, and of course taking into consideration maybe the comments and the questions that have come up from this webinar. And then maybe after that, I will give it straight to Comrade Matthews to give us the conclusion. So welcome, maybe in any order. We can start with maybe Comrade. Yes, please. Before Matthews.
As you invite the last comment from our dear guests, I would like to invite everyone in the chat just to put in the chat in writing. We'll pick it up later in the conclusion. What do you want? Your one message of peace. Your one message of peace and solidarity. What is it? Drop it down on the chat and we'll pick it up for the conclusion. Thank you. Over to you, CD, and to our speakers.
Yes, thank you, Comrade Matthews, for reminding me on that. That's very critical. You know, we are facing tough times in the world, so you feel free to share a message of solidarity and peace that can also be shared and amplified. So maybe Comrade Barbara, or maybe we can start with the same order, maybe Comrade Susan Nakashwa, maybe just 1 minute, your brief conclusion, and maybe if you can touch on some of the issues that have been raised, then we go to Comrade Barbara and then Mariam. 1 minute.
Comrade CD, I think I will yield, because I don't remember any question that was particularly to me, but I will yield the time to a broader conversation around solutions. which are context specific that we can be involved and engaged in. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Comrade Susan, for that. Maybe Comrade Barbara.
I see I also didn't get a question. I don't remember any question to me.
Yeah, basically, but any final comment or closing comment, because I know you've touched also on the issue of solutions, but if there's no comment on now, maybe we can go to Comrade Mariam.
Yeah, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I think that it's very evident from presentation made by Matthias and just put my camera on, made by Matthias, made by Barbara, Susan, and myself, that there's almost like a bifurcated system going on where you have a lot of this complexity going on in the commercial seed food sector. Digitalization, corporate concentration, UPOF 91, things happening at the international level, at the national level, dealing with laws and policies, and a lot of extraction taking place from the continent. And then you have the circumstances by small-scale food producers and other people working and living in rural areas and urban areas for that matter, and trying to eke out a living and trying their best to make their lives work. And along the way, we also find not only complexity, but also a lot of contradictions, as one of our comrades was saying about bottled water, trolleys full of ultra-processed food, and so on. I think that we need to navigate these complexities and these challenges and contradictions. But I think we have to continue to do the work on the ground, continue to support the good work, as our comrade from the DRC was outlining about their restaurant, local there's a lot of successful stories and a lot of successes despite the bad news, despite news of genocide, wars, conflicts. That's one part of the story. One part of the story is the onslaught by the corporatized global mafia, if you want to say. And then the other part is that ordinary men and women are doing their best to forge their way forward, to embrace farmer-managed seed systems, agroecology, and we must just continue to do our work. And that's the best advice I can give. We mustn't lose hope. We must be aware of what is going on. We must do our pushback. Not everybody on the ground can be involved in the pushback. Different people will have different roles to play. And as far as possible, we must continue to support the good work already being done on the ground. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, comrades, for that. And of course, for the speakers, in fact, has been eye-opening, especially getting to know the players behind. And I think it is important now for us to further it and try to break it down further. And we might want to need more of such discussions and spaces quite often for us also to be able to be sharing some of the issues that are happening on the ground. So I would want to take this opportunity to also welcome Comrade Matthias, maybe to give us the conclusion, and then we close the webinar. Welcome, Comrade Matthias.
Thanks a lot, Sidi. I'll be very quick. In the beginning, we started this discussion setting out the main concepts around the architecture of global domination. We have seen from the presentations of Barbara and Susan how this is taking shape from a corporate perspective. We saw the main businesses, where they are from and which parts of the value chain they are controlling or vying to control. We heard from Miriam more specifics in terms of how policies are mobilized, commercial policies, even national safety, biosafety, and laws and policies are used, instrumentalized to make sure the control happens, as it were. But we also saw from the ground, CD and everyone, that it's not all doom and gloom, even though we are in difficult times globally. I agree fully with Mariam's message that we need to continue our work, continue building what we feel is right, what we feel is correct, what we feel is the worthy future to build as people. That's in summary. I will stop there, CD, to give you the last word. I would just say that it seems that we are in ending times of the end, the apocalypse, as it were. But really, these are the beginning of new times, and we must continue to build it in the right way. Thank you, CD.
So much, Comrade Matthews, for that, and I would not want to take more time. Just to thank you, and of course, the webinar was being recorded, and I'm sure the recording will be shared, and we might also want to share it with a majority of our members. And if you are here, maybe if there's some issues that are going to emerge after this, feel free to reach out to either of the speakers or the organizers or the organization to be able to make, especially if you have any follow-up activity or event that is linked to this. So without wasting my time, I want to thank all of you. Yes, Matthews, I've seen your hand up.
Sidi, yes, I just wanted just in the last word before you close, we have some solidarity messages that came in the chat that I think are worth sharing with everyone. Also, because this is being transmitted live on YouTube, it will remain for eternity as long as digital data and the internet is there. This will remain online for everyone to see. So we have Melanie saying that we want a fair and a world that is fair and with solidarity, respecting the environment, and that food sovereignty, agroecology, and family farming be our way of life, as well as our way to protect the environment. May we all support our own beautiful work. Thank you. And then from Temba, the world needs peace. There will be no food security without peace, and with peace, people around the world are able to exercise their rights for food sovereignty, as peace enables people to produce their own food, which is culturally appropriate using local resources available at the local level. I'll quote you to end, CD, with the third final message. With the shift towards war, militarization, and food production, digitalization, the peasant should not lose hope, but should intensify localized food production connected with peasant systems to be able to respond to comrades facing the attacks like Palestine, like Ukraine, Venezuela, Sudan, and so on. Thank you very much, dear comrades. I really appreciate those of you who took a part in putting this together, to our dear guests for building all of this together. And from my side, this will be the final goodbye, Sidi. Thank you.
Comrade Matthews, for that, and to all comrades for taking part in this important day. So I think we can maybe just open our cameras and just say the last, just to say hi to everyone. Thank you. Yes, viva comrades, viva!
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 Let's open our cameras, comrades. Thank you, Barbara.
Merci,
Thank
merci
you, Susan.
beaucoup.
Thank you, Mariam. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
And see you.
Merci. Au revoir.
Thank you so much.